Welcome, folks. This is 27 Degrees, our angle on all things Google Workspace. My name's Troy. The other guy here is Rowan. We are your hosts, and we're here to bring you all of the latest updates, go-to tips, and our best insights as a workspace partner working at SADA. Rowan, I gotta say, I'm excited to just sit down with you again and get to talk about all of the things that we wished we got to talk about all day at work. How you feeling this week, man?
Of course. I'm always delighted to talk all things workspace, but particularly as Google continue to take advantage of the need for these work from home tools, and as we move into a more flexible environment, maybe the work environment right now is continuing to transform in an exciting way, and Google are really stepping up to meet that challenge, which is super exciting for us to chat about. So lots of good content to discuss.
Yeah, and if you work with Google Workspace at home, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Click the notifications on. We've got tons of great content coming up with all of the Google Workspace roadmap of updates. So please continue to check us out in future episodes. Rowan, as a workspace sales specialist, what are your top 3 updates that you'd like to share with our viewers today?
We have 3 absolutely incredible updates to share with our folks. So the first one that we have to share is a very exciting integration between 2 incredible tools within Google Workspace. This is going to be an integration between the Google Chat service and Google Calendar. This one is around suggesting chats based on calendar events that are one-to-one meetings. So 10 minutes before a calendar event with you and one other participant only, there'll be a chat suggested between you where you can update them maybe if you're running over your last meeting perhaps. And also 10 minutes after as well, it'll be suggested automatically for you. And that allows you to share any follow-up information or perhaps any files or resources with them, which I absolutely love, right? With no work at all. They can share the files afterwards or also give updates before, which is brilliant. I love that.
You know, in the new world we're working in and living in, we're bouncing from meeting to meeting, from video call, from meet to meet.
Right.
As we should say. There are times where those meetings run over and you've got to let someone know that you're going to be running behind schedule a little bit, or you go into the next meeting after that one-to-one chat, one-to-one meet, and you need that reminder to follow up on that last meeting that you just had. So I think this is a great, again, more evolutions in Google meeting us where we are in our work life now. And I love that. Great update.
Right, totally. They're reacting to a need that they see. And I think I actually watched a video of Javier Sortero describing this feature in action and why they had created it, because they saw internally the need for this type of information sharing before and after calls, and they saw that it was very helpful. So I love that Google are doing this, and of course also that it feeds to the constant themes of promoting and encouraging communication and collaboration across the different tools. So absolutely love that one. That was a cracker.
Great. Yeah, what's number 2?
This is an update actually on an incredibly useful feature within the Google Slides product, so the presentation tool that's built into Google Workspace. So this one is around the presentation toolbar or the presenter toolbar, and this contains many helpful features within it that allow you to present more effectively and professionally. So you can navigate between slides using the presenter toolbar, you can use a pointer tool to highlight different areas, you can use the Q&A feature to take in questions and present them and provide answers, and you can also use Auto Advance to move between the slides in that way. So Google have listened to actually customer feedback in this case, which is another reason I love this update, because Google are very reactive, of course, to how they see their customers interacting with the product. So in this case, customers complained that the toolbar was taking up a little too much real estate or space on the presentation. So Google actually condensed the toolbar into 3 buttons only, which is really helpful. So we have the back button, the forward button, and then there's a 3-dot menu that contains all of those tools that I described earlier. They're super helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's just such a strong display of how nimble and agile Google Workspace continues to be, even though it's such a broadly used tool or set of tools. And Google's just demonstrating that they're aware that there are still constant improvements to be made. Great update, simple, but as a account manager who's constantly presenting business reviews and account plans, that sort of thing with my customers, I think that's something that it may be subtle. I may not notice it at first, but it's just going to feel better the more that I'm using slides. So love that update as well. What's number 3, man?
This is one of my favorite tools, as you know, one that we actually used in our planning and creation of the show that we're running right now. It's an update for the JamBoard, an absolute cracker of a tool within Workspace. So this is a tool, a sort of digital whiteboard that can be used for a number of different cases, but most commonly or most valuably, we see the JamBoard tool being used for education type purposes or more creative type meetings where we need to throw together ideas in a visual way that's a bit more freeing than a doc, sheet, or a slide would allow. So the update for the JamBoard is, again, an integration with a feature that's in many of the other Google products, and it's fantastic, which is called version history. So in a doc, sheet, and a slide for many years now, you've been able to look back in time at all of the revisions and changes that have been made within a file, and you can actually revert back to that previous revision. You can see the people who've edited the file and they're color coded in a way. So to have that capability, and we're going to break that down later in a later segment in the show in more detail, so you can look forward to that. But to have that capability built into this creative JamBoard tool is really fantastic, and I think it's going to allow for a lot more use and collaboration of the JamBoard to have that feature of saving every single edit that's been made over time. I think it's going to be super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's something that's inherent in cloud-based tools, right? This sort of storage versioning wouldn't be possible on limited storage spaces. So great evolution of that tool to catch up to some of the other pieces within the Workspace suite. And I'm excited to dive into JamBoard a little bit more. I'm warming up to it more and more every week, and I'm excited for that segment later in the show today, where we actually collaborate using JamBoard. So stay tuned for that one coming up in a little bit. Thanks for sharing those, Rowan. We're going to bring you Rowan's top 3 updates as a Workspace sales specialist every episode. So we'll keep you up to date with all of the latest roadmap releases and updates coming to Google Workspace. So make sure you keep checking us out for those updates. And if you have any questions or want to see updates featured, feel free to reach out. We're happy to work with you. Our next segment that we're going to have on a recurring basis is something that's really important to me as an account manager. I get to work with our customers day in and day out, Rowan, and I know you do too. And we get to see the successes and the real difference that we can make by migrating them to Google Workspace. And we get to hear these amazing stories of completely transforming businesses through the evolution of their technology stack. And that's the story that I want to share today. It's one of our customers called Kravet. Kravet. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. They're not my customer.
Kravet.
Kravet is a story that I wanted to feature early on in our show, because I think it's a real fastball down the middle of the plate as far as an opportunity for Workspace to make a real tangible difference for a company who's experiencing some challenges. So we're going to walk you through some of the challenges and some of the background around this customer win or customer story. And then Rowan's going to talk through some of the solutions that we implemented, and we'll touch on the results as well. So you'll get to see a full idea of how this story came out. Kravet is a 102-year-old company that distributes fabrics, furniture, carpets, and other items for the interior design trade. And its mission is to serve as a single home furnishings resource to the community it serves. So it's a family-owned business, and they are focused right now on leveraging innovation and technology to become a global player in the space. And for the first 100 years, the business ran as it had for generations. It's in its 5th generation of family ownership, which is amazing. And in 2018, though, they actually began a transformative journey, and they wanted to evolve their technology infrastructure and really equip the company for its future. So within that journey, they had the difficult decision to evaluate the Microsoft tools that Kravet had been using for decades. And this isn't uncommon, right, Rowan? I mean, we see people on these tools for years and years. They've been around for a long time.
This is the most common thing we see with the larger enterprises that haven't used the magic of Google Workspace yet, is that they're based on legacy Microsoft technology. So we're very well versed in analyzing those types of environments and helping customers move to Workspace. Anyway, continue on, sir.
Yeah, that's okay. No, exactly. We see this all the time. This is what people come to SADA, come to Google Workspace for, is this sort of evaluation. And something that I'd love to dive deeper as far as what that mutual evaluation process looks like on a future episode. I think that'd be a great segment for us to dive into. In Kravet's case, they were using, and this is common, so they were using Microsoft Exchange for email and calendaring. Most employees had Microsoft Office products installed on their local machines or their computers. And the company did have an Office 365 enterprise license for email, but they had limited access to licenses for other programs within the Office 365 suite. So what that resulted in was a bit of a few challenges. So they were experiencing that some employees, or we actually in the industry often refer to these employees as users. So if you hear us say users, we're just referring to employees. But some employees had capabilities that others didn't, and they had limits on storage because they were all on their local devices, and they had restricted transportability of information. So with Kravet, they had 950 employees that were spread out throughout corporate offices or showrooms across North America and Europe. And as we mentioned, these employees were long tenured. They'd been at the company for a long time, and oftentimes in those corporate offices, they were power users of those Microsoft tools. And what we mean by a power user is someone who's just a heavy user of the software. A common example that we see is a finance department really relying on Excel spreadsheets to get their job done on a day in and day basis. We would refer to them as a power user. So, in this case, the change management for this type of migration off of these tools really takes a lot of experience with, excellent communication, training, and finesse or fine touch. Rowan, why don't you kind of walk us through what the solution for Google Workspace looks like for these challenges? Because I know you know this one well.
I would love to. And this is, as you said, such a typical case of an organization coming to us with perhaps often, like I said, a Microsoft type solution that's maybe they're facing some problems with, and it's a little bit disparate and not managed centrally. And that's honestly one of the things that Workspace brings along with other things. But to highlight or just pull out some of the issues or challenges I think that you defined there, not all users having access to all the types of tools and data across an organization. This is a common problem that we see all the time with Microsoft-based organizations, and it's something that is a great thing to move to Google Workspace towards, because generally in a move to Workspace, all users, as you mentioned, that's what we generally call them in the industry, all users have access to all of the tools that are available. That's one of the core things within Workspace. So being able to provide that is a theme that Google call collaboration equity, providing everyone the same access or equal ability to contribute, collaborate, and communicate within the company. So that's definitely one of the issues that I think was addressed with the move to Google Workspace. But some of the others I think are also classic issues that we see, like having storage limitations, which can be very easily taken away by moving away from a local on-premise server like Exchange, moving into the cloud and using Gmail. These issues like storage limitations, portability of data, and I would also mention that they were probably facing issues around maintenance that would melt away, and perhaps some security and reliability issues with using Exchange on-prem that would just completely go away with using a solution like Google Workspace where you have Gmail. So I think that was definitely part of the solution, solving the email problem and also consolidating and allowing, all of the users to have access to tools. But I also think a very classic thing that we see with the companies that are based on Microsoft, is a split between on-premise technology and cloud. And that's not something that is a theme within a move to Google Workspace. When you move to Workspace, it's all in on cloud. And there's a reason for that. There's benefits in terms of collaboration, security, cost effectiveness, efficiency, all kinds of benefits to be gained across the board. And there's no local-based software or tools for Workspace. You don't have that same split between on-premise and cloud and that sort of disparate solution. It's all in on cloud. And I think, again, that really helped Kravet out here. Being able to have all of the users have the same access to tools on one system.
Great. Yeah. And I think on top of all of that, obviously Google Workspace as a solution itself is amazing. But the big challenge of migrating all of those 950 employees is something where SADA comes in. So the company we work for, SADA, we're experts in change management. So when I say experts, for example, in this case, the SADA team we developed customized training documents and collateral. We conducted train the trainer and company-wide learning sessions. So we actually enabled local resources within the company to be considered Workspace trainers. So they have ongoing resources to be able to maintain themselves. And we even created signage to display throughout Kravet's offices detailing upcoming milestones. That might look different today if they're not working in the office, but minding milestones and keeping on track with your migration goals is something that we can definitely assist in as well. So proactive activities like that made the rollout and the changeover to Workspace much easier. We also continue to position Kravet for success by keeping them abreast of all of the Google Cloud's product roadmap and upcoming enhancements. And I think a good example of that is Jesse Lazarus is the Chief Process and Innovation Officer at Kravet, and he really helped us write this story that we're telling today by providing a lot of detail and quotes. And one thing he said was, SADA has also introduced us to other solutions that have helped make improvements in the way we internally manage our systems. I like the fact that our partnership has grown into something far greater than where we started. And that just speaks to our customer success organization within SADA here and how we manage our customers ongoing. Really quickly, I'll wrap with some of the results that Kravet saw through this migration. So the company experienced great strides using Google Workspace almost immediately. They were able to successfully migrate 950 users from the legacy Microsoft environment to Google Workspace, develop a customized change management and communications plan that significantly eased the transition for their employees. And for the last benefit, again, I'm going to go back to a quote from the customer. This is from Eugene Cordy, the VP of Infrastructure and Security at Kravet. So if two roles at Kravet are giving us quotes to support this customer story, we obviously must have wowed them and done a good job. But Eugene said, the greatest quantifiable metric for me is that in March 2020, we quickly moved 500 employees to remote work status due to the pandemic and suffered absolutely no loss in service. And that's something that I think a lot of our viewers or businesses that we work with on a day-to-day basis can identify with experiencing in this last year. There is a lot of pain around moving to remote work during the pandemic, and really glad that we were able to position Kravet so that they were able to do that with ease. That's the customer story. We're going to continue to share those stories with you. If you're interested in any other workspace wins that SADA has to share, you can head over to www.sada.com/insights. It's time for JamBoarding. So Rowan, what are you going to JamBoard for us today? What are we whiteboarding out?
All right. I'm super excited for this segment. As you know, one of my favorite tools to show off, the JamBoard again. And I think this is going to be an exciting one because for the audience at home, I've actually done some preparation this time. On this occasion, we're going to have a closer look at how working in the cloud is different to having your tools and data locally. last time we had a bit of a discussion on the general or broad differences between having those tools and data locally on your computer versus working in the cloud. But in this case, we're going to look specifically at file sharing and collaboration and why that's so advantageous to solve some of the problems that working locally has. Let me share my screen and let's dive in. Okay, folks, so today we're going to have a deep dive into a subject that we've talked about broadly plenty of time, the differences between using your tools and data locally compared to working in the cloud, which is of course one of the core concepts within Workspace. But today we're going to specifically look at how that concept comes into play with file sharing and collaboration, and how there's so much to be gained from working in the more modern cloud-based way rather than a more traditional way. I hope you like the emojis that I added to this slide, Troy. There's going to be many more coming.
More emojis, the better. Keep them coming.
I like it. So before we go into how Google solved the problem or some of the problems or challenges that this more traditional type workflow has, we're going to take a look at breaking down that type of workflow and some of the challenges, and then we can look at the solution. So as I'm going to go through this, you can see at the top right, Troy's following along, ready to collaborate at moment's notice, and you might just see that come into play later on. So let's have a look at the more traditional way of collaborating first. So in this example, I was creating a document for the show actually. So the group of me, Troy, Kenneth, and Lincoln working together, we need to create a file that allows us to organize the show resources. So in this case, I've created the file locally. I'm going to work on it. And when I'm finished with my version of it, I'll add it to an email as an attachment, and then I'll email it to the team. And then perhaps Troy will take that version, he'll download it, work on it locally, and then he'll email that to the team and so forth. And each time there might be some edits or revisions or additions made to the document or the file. So it's one by one file revisions, individual editing, and then version sharing happens when we email it via an attachment. So this all works fine.
I gotta say right now, Rowan, this sounds like a story I'm gonna tell my grandkids about how we used to do work back in my day right now.
Totally. This is definitely the old way of doing things, not how we want to be doing it. So one of the challenges that comes into play when we work in this fashion immediately is that if two of us want to make revisions to the file at the same time, then perhaps we work away locally on our two different documents. In this case, Troy and Kenneth have both made copies and they're working away. So this is fine, but when they come to save it and share it, suddenly we have a conflict copy and there's a problem. We don't know which version to use, and it doesn't make it easy to resolve that and move forward with one version of the document.
Yeah, that's tough, right? I mean, I think this is one of the core issues with this version of collaborating, where all of a sudden we're piling up versions. You can think about how this multiplies across a whole organization, all of these different files floating around. We don't know which one's the latest. We don't know who owns combining all of the updates into one single source of truth. Why doesn't this tool just do this for us? Why aren't we all just working on one single source of truth?
I couldn't agree more. So like you said, Troy, some of the issues that arise with this way of working doesn't encourage collaborative working where we're working together in real time. There's no way to track changes over time. It doesn't make it easy to see who's made the changes, so there's visibility for everyone. And we only have the latest version of the file once someone shares it via email. It's not always available to us until someone does that. So Google took note of some of those challenges and absolutely changed the game. So the Google way of doing things is completely different. And this is how you get some advantages in working in the cloud, in the browser, rather than working locally on your machine. So in the Google way of collaborating, we have one version of the file that we all work on in real time. So there's no single versions or individual versions that people are working on individually and then sharing. Everyone has access to the file at all times, which is fantastic. So in this case, we've added me, Troy, and Lincoln, but it looks like we forgot someone, Troy, right?
You forgot producer Kenneth.
And as you can see...
Gotta have the whole band in there.
Absolutely. And as you can see, Troy's demonstrating exactly what we're talking about. We're live updating the file in real time. He's working on the document with me. So there's no local version that he only sees. We all see the same source of truth.
And you get to see us work on it alongside. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So in working in this way, we get some real powerful benefits. So we get to work in real time together, which allows us to track all the revisions that are made to the document. And it facilitates a much more collaborative way of working and communicating. Rather than me working individually on the file and sending it to you, we all get to work on the file at the same time. Also, there's only one version of the truth, so everyone has access to the same version, and access permissions can be updated at any point. And lastly, the revision history is really helpful, so you never lose any unsaved work because minute by minute it saves the changes that you make, and there's full transparency. You know who made what changes when.
Awesome use of the Jamboard, Rowan. I think it's amazing that we can leverage a tool within Google Workspace to actually whiteboard out and explain the abstract concepts of how Google Workspace has changed the face of collaboration. We'll be bringing more whiteboarding of concepts like this and more demos utilizing tools within Google Workspace and in the way that we use them, or we recommend to our customers to use them for your benefit as a viewer. In future episodes of 27 Degrees. We hope you enjoyed this episode and all of the updates and content we had for you. We hope you found some value in them. I just want to say thanks for tuning in. I'm Troy.
I'm Rowan. Oh, sorry, dude. I'm Rowan, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome use of the Jamboard, Rowan. I think there's lots of other abstract concepts and ideas around Google Workspace and how it's transforming things for other businesses and restart. Just want to say I don't know how to end this show. This has been an episode of 27. An episode? Just start with your part. He'll cut it in.
Oh my goodness.
Say, I'm Rowan. And we'll see you on the next episode. Literally just say that. Look at the camera and say that.